City Council picks a new location for Thunder Bay's temporary homeless village. Good evening and thank you for joining us. There's been another big change in the city's response to homelessness. Council has selected a new site for the proposed temporary shelter village, and it's not the one administration recommended. Last night, there was wide support for a proposal from Councillor Mark Bentz to build on a city-owned wooded lot on North Cumberland Street next to the Salvation Army's Journey to Life Centre. The change came after numerous concerns about city staff's recommended location on Fort William Road. Jessica Clement has the details.
During a long night at City Hall, Council debated the proposed location for the temporary shelter village at 1111 Fort William Road. Councillors had a wide range of concerns about the site, including it being so close to waterways and the inner city businesses. Encampment Response Plan lead Riley Willinen notes that many existing encampments are already located near waterways, and there have been no injuries or fatalities due to water proximity.
We also reached out to Thunder Bay Fire Rescue for some data on how often they are doing river rescues within that area. And on average, over the past 6 years, there's been only 2.5 rescues per year, and none of those resulted in serious injury or fatality.
Council members pointed out they received numerous emails over the past week from nearby business owners and residents expressing their concerns.
I spoke to various large box store owners today, managers and store owners, and said in the summer when the encampments are larger, their thefts are triple.
There is no evidence that crime will increase, none. There is no factual evidence to suggest that. In fact, a number of people who are experts in the field would suggest that the likelihood of crime may very well decrease.
Councillors were also hesitant about having to lease the property from the LRCA. At-large Councillor Mark Bentz proposed an amendment to focus on another property on the list, a city-owned wooded lot on Cumberland Street beside the Salvation Army's Journey to Life Centre.
I'm really concerned about putting $1.5 million onto LRCA property, at least on the Cumberland site. The investment we make into that property stays with the taxpayer.
That property was also highly ranked in the city's screening of dozens of potential sites across Thunder Bay, as it's on a main transit route and close to relevant services at the Salvation Army. However, Director of Engineering Matthew Miedema says the property will need extensive site preparation to be usable.
We don't know what kind of bedrock we're going to encounter at those sites. As well, that park has high known groundwater issues. It's often saturated in spring events, so extensive underground base is required at the park site.
Some members were concerned that any delays could cost the city the $2.8 million in funding from the Thunder Bay DSAB. However, Bentz's amendment passed 9-2. Salvation Army Executive Director Gary Ferguson says they have no opposition to the proposed location.
I think the only concern that we'd have at this point is that it's continuing to be referred to as the Salvation Army site, and this is not our property, nor it's an initiative at this point that we are the lead organization. So I think it's a little bit premature at this time to really know how that may affect us.
The Cumberland site is expected to be ratified at Council's meeting next week. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
City Council has rejected major changes to the ward boundaries and the structure of council. At last night's meeting, council members voted against a proposal to move to a 4-ward model with 2 councillors per ward, 2 at-large councillors and a mayor. Justin Hardy reports.
The proposed model was recommended by the Council Composition Committee after about a year and a half of working with the City Clerk's office on ward distribution and other options. Only councillors Kristen Oliver and Trevor Gertuga and Mayor Ken Boschkoff supported the proposed model.
I quite like the recommendation that the committee put forward. I think that it's a great opportunity to review the way the ward boundaries are currently aligned and what the new alignment is. I think that it brings some balance to ensuring that the wards are all, sort of following the same demographics that we're seeing throughout the community, and that it just, like I said, has that balance there.
But many other councillors were not convinced with the new council composition model. Councillor Mark Bentz brought forward an amendment to alter the recommended 4-ward system. Instead of 2 councillors for each new larger ward and 2 councillors elected at large, he wanted to see just 1 councillor per ward and 6 at-large councillors plus the mayor.
I understand these are bigger wards and there are some concerns about workload. You have 6 other councillors that can work in any of the wards. And I'm sure citizens would have more access to councillors if they had 1 ward and 6 at large that they could turn to rather than just 2 a ward and 2 at large.
Council voted against Bent's motion by a close 7-5 vote. The majority of council then rejected the Composition Committee's original recommendation, meaning the city will stick with the status quo for the 2026 election. Former City Councillor Rebecca Johnson was the chair of the Council Composition Review Committee. She watched the debate in council chambers and was disappointed after seeing council vote against what they spent 2 years working towards.
Kudos that they made a decision. I think that's important. I think, though, that this was a chance to look at having all the wards be equal. And now that is gone again. And so, you know, whether they were equal in population, education, income, households, etc., that was really important for our committee to look at.
Another motion from Councillor Andrew Folds to reject the committee proposal but review ward boundaries for population equity was also defeated. Justin Hardy, TBT News.
The other key issue for council was the demolition of the historic James Whalen tug. The contract to scrap the vessel was back on the agenda following some confusion a couple weeks ago about a cheaper local option that turned out to be false. The restored tug dates back to 1905 but has been sitting at the Patterson dock for 2.5 years. The city paid over $800,000 in 2022 to lift the sunken ship out of the Cam River. The lowest bidder for the contract to demolish and recycle it came in at $579,000. Members of the Thunder Bay Transportation Museum made a last-ditch effort to save it last night, asking the city to spend an extra $120,000 to save the top of the vessel for a public display at Pool 6. They also promised to fundraise to pay back the money, but the majority of council voted against that idea, and they opted to award the contract to scrap the entire tug. With Canadians heading to the polls soon, TBT News is once again profiling the candidates in the 2 Thunder Bay area ridings. Tonight, we're starting off with the incumbent MP in Thunder Bay Superior North. Liberal Patty Hajdu is looking for a 4th straight win to continue to represent the riding in Ottawa. Ryan Graham has more in this candidate profile.
Patty Hajdu is seeking her 4th term as a Liberal MP for Thunder Bay Superior North. She was first elected in 2015 and won the 2021 election by more than 5,000 votes over her nearest opponent. She's held various cabinet posts over the past decade, most recently at the Minister of Indigenous Services. Hajdu explains why she is running for re-election.
I deeply understand the region after serving for almost 9.5 years. But very importantly, this is a pivotal moment for Canada. Canada is going to make a choice about whether or not we continue to stand strong for each other as a sovereign nation with a strong Canadian economy, or whether we're going to descend into divisive politics and let politicians pit us against each other.
We asked Hajdu what her key priorities are if she's re-elected to Parliament. She plans to continue supporting economic growth and better infrastructure within smaller communities and First Nations communities, and attracting large projects for job stimulation in Thunder Bay Superior North as a whole.
Continuing the work on self-determination, whether it's child welfare or health legislation. And then for Thunder Bay, of course, there are even diverse priorities within the city of Thunder Bay, but continuing the work to ensure that we attract the best and brightest to stay in Thunder Bay, to grow our economy.
On top of her many years of experience in Ottawa, Hajdu says she also brings the benefits of long-term relationships to the job. When asked what set her apart from her opponents in this election race, Hajdu points to her perseverance and optimism for the future of Thunder Bay.
In the case of the Conservative member, have not spent any significant time in the recent past in the riding and do not know the issues of the riding, and in fact are offering a very American style of politics to our region that, in what I'm hearing at the door, most Thunder Bay Superior North residents are rejecting.
Ryan Graham, TBT News.
Tomorrow, we'll hear from the NDP candidate in the riding, Joy Wakefield. Another high-ranking leader of Anishinaabe Nation has become the subject of an internal investigation. 2 years after former Grand Chief Derek Fox was suspended and then fired for alleged misconduct, Nan Deputy Grand Chief Bobby Narcisse is now facing a probe into his behavior. Narcisse was first elected in 2021 and was re-elected to another 3-year term in 2024. A confidential letter from Grand Chief Alvin Fiddler to the 49 NAN chiefs was recently obtained and made public by Globe and Mail reporter Willow Fiddler. The letter says the NAN Executive Council passed a motion last Friday to order an independent investigation after receiving concerns and allegations regarding Narcisse. It also states that Narcisse is not allowed into NAN offices but can continue working virtually with pay as he's entitled to due process. Narcisse declined requests for comment on the situation. NAN officials didn't respond today either. The Ontario Forest Industries Association predicts that area sawmills should be able to survive despite a huge increase in American softwood lumber duties. The decision by the U.S. Commerce Department will more than double the existing duties starting in July or August. Brendan Miller explains.
With the impending duty increase from 14.5% to 34.5% on softwood lumber, there will be plenty of consequences that come with it. The overall costs of doing business for the area sawmills will be greatly impacted. But the wide-ranging impact could also affect pulp and paper mills and every worker in the forestry sector. Ontario Forest Industries Association CEO Ian Dunn says here in this region, the additional duties will not hit nearly as hard as other parts of the province.
Northwestern Ontario is actually in pretty good shape because of facilities in Dryden and Thunder Bay that can take the residuals from sawmills. But Northwestern Ontario, Southeastern Ontario, they've seen closures and idlings and curtailments of the pulp and paper sector, which is a very important market for mill residuals.
There's no doubt the forestry sector will be impacted. Dunn feels the area sawmills can survive the storm. However, he wants to see the provincial and federal governments do more to help the industry during the ongoing trade war.
In total, since they've been collecting duties since 2017, there's about $7 billion of Canadian lumber producers' money at the border. That is money that could be used to reinvest into communities, reinvest into mills, make our mills more competitive in Ontario and in Canada, and currently just sitting at the border collecting interest.
Dunn says he would like to see that money be used to provide liquidity to the industry. The province announced on Monday that it will spend $11 billion to keep Ontario businesses afloat during the trade war. And Dunn says the Ontario Energy Minister provided a letter to him saying companies in this province should develop an entirely Ontario-based supply chain. Brendan Miller, TBT News.
A new free fitness class for moms and their babies is now being offered every week at the Matawa Training and Wellness Center on Algoma Street. The Matawa Health Cooperative is offering these Move with Mama fitness classes every Wednesday at 2 p.m. for infants and toddlers 3 and under to help mothers get active while bonding with their babies and connecting with other moms. Siobhan Turpin is the fitness instructor spearheading the new weekly classes. She hopes to see more mothers take advantage of the workouts, which are geared to all fitness levels.
I think if you're just looking to have a good time and get out a little bit more with your baby, socialize, get healthy, then this is a perfect class for you. The class is an hour long, and that includes a warm-up, and then we do some cardio, some strength training, and then some cool-down static stretches. They should expect to just come, have some movement, also not just solely focused on fitness, but also, like I said, bonding with their kids and making connections with other moms too.
Those who are interested can sign up online or call the Matawa Health Cooperative for more information. I know this is certainly the time of year that I start to get a little more motivated when it comes to my fitness. Haley, we are still not quite at seasonal values temperature-wise, but that sun is very nice when you're outside.
Absolutely. It definitely helps if you're trying to get out and get active because it brightens up your day at the very least. And you know what? It was a little cool today, I won't lie. But hey, if you're out getting some fresh air, it definitely feels fresh when it's a little colder. So today we did get above the freezing mark. I'll give us that. Our high was 1 degree, which we hit around 4 o'clock this afternoon. Now that isn't very close to seasonal, as around this time of year we should be seeing highs around 8 degrees. But like I said, above the freezing mark and mainly sunny all day long. So that was very lovely. Our wind winds fluctuated quite a bit. I would say they were predominantly from the west for most of the day, but they did fluctuate between 3 and 33 kilometers an hour from the south-southeast most recently. And our low was earlier in the morning. That was around 8 a.m., minus 15 with wind chills making it feel like minus 20. So the start of our day was definitely still a little colder and colder than what we want to be seeing for this time of year. But there was some areas around the region that saw an okay day. Most places were just reaching for above the freezing mark, like here in Thunder Bay. We see right now Red Lake, Kenora, and Dryden are all at 1 degree. And we see Fort Frances and Atikokan at 2. Now, areas to the west actually saw more cloud coverage than they were originally predicted yesterday. And I think that helped them get to the warmer temperatures a little bit. I know what you're thinking. The sun's not out as much, but it can help keep in whatever little heat we have. And as for the east, fairly consistent right now, around minus 4. We see Nipigon and Marathon at minus 3 right now. Nipigon did see a little bit of winds from the north-northeast in the afternoon, so that made them feel a little bit colder. But for the most part, sunnier on the eastern side of the region. Now for tonight in Thunder Bay, we're going to start clear and then we'll become partly cloudy around midnight. Now our low is a little bit better, minus 7, so a single-digit negative with a wind chill making it feel like minus 10. Around this time of year, we want to see a low of just minus 3. So at this point, that feels a little wishful, but our winds will be fairly light tonight. And I can assure you, Ryan, that by the end of the week, we will get much closer to seasonal, if not a little above.
Oh, I like to hear that. All right, it was very cold last night, so hopefully that is a thing of the past. All right, thanks a lot, Haley.